friends, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
Greetings, Mr. Bergstrom here, and welcome to our Economics Final Review cast. You should have it in front of you, your Economics Final Review packet, and I'm going to take you through Units 1 and Unit 2. Mr. Grosskloss is going to take you through Unit 3, Supply and Demand, and then Mr. Thompson is going to finish things up by taking us through money and banking and then a little bit of international economics. So, without further ado, here we go. Let's start with Unit number 1, an introduction to economics, and let's start with some terms. The first term is economics. Now, if you remember from our first economics unit, we've had two different definitions of economics. Definition number 1 is economics is the study of how a society uses its scarce resources to meet the needs and wants of the citizens. Or we could say economics is the study of the production, consumption, and distribution of goods and services, right? So I always think about economics, I think about back in the day when I used to deliver ice. It was a cool job. And so I worked at Arctic Glacier Ice in West St. Paul, Minnesota. And they would produce the ice, right? So they'd make it there, the production. They would distribute the ice, so the ice trucks would take it to the different stores. Consumers would purchase it, and then they would consume it. So there we have the production, consumption, and distribution of goods and services. A good, remember, a good is something that is tangible. In other words, something that you can see, something that you can touch. A service, on the other hand, is not something that you can necessarily touch, but we have people who provide services. Like if you go get a haircut, that's a service provider. By the way, if you do get a haircut, ask for a high, tight, fade right, clean up the top. Then you will get a good haircut. The checkout person at Pick and Save, they are providing a service. Opportunity cost is our next best alternative. So you have two choices tonight. You can go with your buddies and have a pizza, or you can stay at home and study economics. If you decide to stay at home and study economics, then your next best alternative, your opportunity cost of doing that was going out with your buddies and having a pizza. Producers are the people who make things. So if you produce a product, you are making the product. Distribute means, am I going too fast here? I hope I'm not going too fast. You're going too fast, Mr. Bergstrom. Slow down. If I'm going too fast, just pause the tape. Distribution is how we divide out the goods that are produced. So distribution is to divide out. Consumers are those who purchase the items, who consume it, whether it's food and we eat it, or whether it's a video game and we play it, we're consuming it nonetheless. So consumers do that. And then resources, when we talk about resources, we're talking about natural, human, and capital resources. So when we talk about natural resources, we're talking about trees and water and minerals, those things that nature provides us. Those are our natural resources. When we talk about capital resources, we're talking about tools and machines and factories. Those are the capital resources. And when we talk about human resources, we're talking about you and I, right? The workers. We are human resources. So natural, capital, and human resources. Then scarcity is the idea that there is a limited amount of everything. And really the reason economics exists is because we have scarce resources. There is a limited amount of stuff in this world. If scarcity did not exist, we wouldn't have to make choices, right? We wouldn't have to make choices, and if we didn't have to make choices, then economics really is pointless, because economics really is just the study of the choices. We even have a scarcity of time. We have a limited amount of time. Economic system. An economic system is simply the way a society organizes its means of production, consumption, and distribution. That's all we mean by an economic system, is how they produce, consume, and distribute those items. And we in class talked about the three main economic systems: traditional, market, and a command. If you remember in class, we did that bead simulation where you were able to actually experience each economic system. So you experience the traditional system. And when you experience that system, you notice that you valued your time and you valued doing things the same way your ancestors had done them. But you certainly did not value being efficient because you just sat back and you made one bead bracelet and the rest of the time you just talked to each other about the weather. Why do we talk about the weather when we don't know what to talk about? That doesn't make any sense. Hey, how's the weather outside? Traditional economic system, okay? Then we looked at the command. We're going to skip to command in a second. The command economic system in which the government determines the means of production. The government says, here's your job. You're going to be the bead sorter. You're going to be the knot tyer. You're going to be the string cutter. But I don't want to be a knot tyer, Mr. Bergstrom. Well, that's too bad. You have to do it because the government tells you to do that. The government assigns the role. Furthermore, the government tells the producers what to produce. The government tells the producers how much money they're going to charge or the price of the product, right? And if we remember some command systems, we talked about the old Soviet Union as a command system. We talked about North Korea as a command system. So the government being in charge of the economy. And then the market system. The market system in which the producers and consumers are going to determine what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce, right? So the producers and the consumers make that determination. They make the determination what the price of the products are going to be. Not the government, not tradition. And remember, the motivation in that market system is really a profit motive. It's the invisible hand that determines the price. Next, factors of production. Do you remember the great video, the the rap video? I don't remember, but what do we call it? But remember the video they say, factors of production: land, labor, capital. Factors of production, land. So the factors of production: land, labor, and capital. The the things that we need to make stuff in society. Mixed economy. Mixed economy. The reality is that most economic systems today are a mixture. They're free market, but they have some role for government. Government is involved somewhat in the economic system. So when we look at the United States, we do not have a completely free market system. We have government involvement. And remember in class we looked at about 6-7 different ways that government was involved in our economic system, whether it was protecting our private property or breaking up monopolies or providing a minimum wage to protect workers. So the reality is that there is some government involvement. Free enterprise is just a synonym for America's economic system, which is free market, but some little role for government. Private property is a right to own things. So you have the private property. You can own a house or a car or a cabin or land. By the way, if you own a cabin on a lake with a lot of fish, please let me know. Thank you. Next, public property. Public property is property that everyone can use. And do you remember when we talked about that? We talked about this idea of tragedy of the commons. That sometimes when there's public property, that there is a disincentive to take care of it, but instead people kind of waste the resource because we're afraid that if we don't get it, someone else is going to. I always think about fishing with this and fishing limits. And you've got some people who really abuse lakes and they take over their fishing limit because they say, well, if I don't do it, someone else is going to. So that's public property. Competition is when you have two businesses providing a similar product. So there's competition between Burger King and McDonald's. And if you go to McDonald's and the cheeseburger, only pickles, and small fry and small orange drink, which is the best thing to get at McDonald's. That orange drink, that is solid stuff. If that's really expensive, you're going to go across the street and get a BK broiler. Those two businesses are in competition. And remember, sometimes government steps in and breaks up what we call monopolies if they fear that competition is being limited. Economic growth, profit motive. Remember, profit motive is the desire of a business to make money. The reason businesses are started in our economic system is because they want to make money. And so that's the profit motive. Economic growth. We want our economy to be growing, and we measure the economic growth with something called the GDP. And remember, GDP stands for gross domestic product, and that's the total number of goods and services that are produced in a country in a given year. And we want that GDP to be steadily increasing, because if it's growing, that means that a lot of people have jobs. Economic stability. Remember, for economic stability to take place, which is another goal of our economic system, so is economic growth, by the way. For economic stability, we want steady economic growth. We want a low inflation rate. Remember what inflation is? Too much money chasing too few goods. Remember that auction? We don't want that to take place. And we need, what did I say? Steady, I forgot what I was going. Steady economic, I should really delete that. All right, steady. In order to have economic stability, we need steady economic growth, measured by the GDP. We need low inflation. We don't want a lot of inflation to take place. And we want low unemployment, something under 5%. Next goal of our economic system is economic security. The idea that you're not going to be left alone in our economic system if you lose your job. Right? There's going to be some safeguard in place there. And a command system values economic security much more than a market system. You know, in a command system, the government provides these things for you, maybe even your housing, maybe your job. And in the market system, that's not the case. But yet there still are some safeguards in place if you lose your job. There's government food stamps and other forms of government assistance. And then economic freedom, and we really value this goal in our economic system. We value the right to choose your own business, to choose your own career, to charge what you want for your own product, to try something else if you want to. So we value that freedom in our economic system. All right, let's go to the unit key questions. Unit key question number 1. What are the factors of production? Land, labor, and capital. I should find that song. Hang on, let's see if we can find that song. All right, here we go. Now, the volume's not going to be good because I'm just playing it from YouTube.
Land, labor, factory, capital, factors of production. Land, labor, factories of production. Land, labor, factors of production. Land is the natural resources we use that we hope will last forever and we can't abuse.
Unit 1, key question number 2. Why must we make economic choices? How does scarcity relate to the choices that we make? So the reason we have to make choices is because of scarcity. Scarcity is the idea that there's a limited amount of things that exist in the world. Because of that, we have to make choices. Because of that, scarcity exists. Number 3, compare and contrast the 3 main economic systems: traditional, market, and command. So when we look at the 3 economic questions, let's look at the 3 economic questions and how these 3 economic systems differ. Question number 1 is what to produce. In a traditional system, you produce what your ancestors did. In a command system, you produce what the government tells you to produce. And in a market system, you produce what you want, or you produce what's going to get you the most money, right? Second economic question: how to produce things. How you produce it? The traditional system, you make it the way that your ancestors made it before. The command system, you make it the way the government tells you to make it. In a market system, you make it the most efficiently. Who gets the items that are produced? In a traditional system, you trade with whoever you've traded with before. In the command system, the government determines who gets these items. And in the market system, it's whoever is willing to pay the highest price. Question number 4. What are the 6 characteristics of America's free enterprise system? Characteristic number 1 is economic freedom. So we talked about economic freedom up in the vocabulary, so I'm not going to say much about that. Okay, but that's the first characteristic. Second characteristic is markets coordinate trade. So when we go to buy something in our economic system, we go to a market, a place like Target or IGA or the farmer's market. Okay, markets coordinate trade. Number 3 is voluntary exchange. In other words, no one forces you to trade anything. No one forces you to buy anything. It's your choice. You feel like you're better off when you go to IGA and buy a donut. By the way, I wish they'd put more sprinkles on the donut in IGA. Donuts in IGA, but that's another story. If anyone knows anyone who works in IGA, give them that hint. More sprinkles on the donuts. Okay, what was I saying there? Oh, voluntary exchange. No one forces you to make a trade. You do that. Next, profit motive. Profit motive is the idea that that you're in a business to make money. Okay, your profit is what matters. Profit motive. Competition is number 4, and we talked about competition already in the vocab, so we're not going to say much about that. Number 5, or is this number 6 now? This is number 6. Private property rights, so your right to own things. Once again, the 6 characteristics are economic freedom, markets, voluntary exchange, profit motive, competition, and private property rights. Question number 5. Why is the U.S. a mixed market economy? The U.S. is a mixed market economy because there is a role that government plays in our economic system. Okay? Government is playing an economic role. That is why we are not completely a free market system, but there is some government involvement in the economy. Okay? Let's do a quick musical interlude before we go to unit number 2. Let's go with Uncle Tupelo, a little 30 seconds of New Madrid. Here we go. A1.
Gentlemen, you ready? Yeah, Mr. Bergstrom, let's go. Gentlemen, A1, A2, A3.
All my daydreams are disasters. She's the one I think I love. Rivers burn and then run backwards. For her, that's enough. They all come from New York City, and they woke me up at dawn. She walked with me.
All right, here we go. Unit 2, America's mixed market economy. Let's start with some vocabulary, and then we'll go through the key questions. Excuse me. There's 8 key questions. Entrepreneur. Remember, an entrepreneur is someone who starts a business or creates a business. And if you remember in class, we watched that video from Poop to Profit about that entrepreneur in Michigan who used manure to start his business on fertilizers. Next, sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is when one person starts a business. Okay, that's a sole proprietorship, one person. Capital. Usually to start a business, you need some money. And so when we're talking about capital here, we're talking about the money necessary to start up a business. Partnership is 2 or more people who go into business together. Profits. Profit with a business, in order to profit, you need your expenses to be less than your income. So you want your income to be greater than your expenses, then you have a profit. A corporation is a type of business that is owned by the shareholders. Type of business owned by the shareholders. Remember, when we talk about corporations, we could talk about McDonald's or Target or Best Buy or Apple. All of those are corporations. Saving. Remember, when you save money, you put your money in a savings account, and you have the opportunity for less reward. You're not going to make a bunch of money on that, but you also have less risk. So less risk and less reward. Reward. That's hard to say fast. Less risk, less reward. Try saying that 5 times fast. Less risk, less reward. Less risk, less reward. And investing. Investing, you have greater risk, but you also have a greater opportunity for reward. And remember, when you invest, you can invest in the stock market. You could buy mutual funds, and that's a chance of making greater money, but you also could lose it all. The Dow stands for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and this lets us know how the stock market's doing. Okay, the ups and downs of the stock market. Dividends are the profits of a corporation divided out among the shareholders. So dividends are the profits of a corporation divided among the shareholders. Mrs. Chack was telling us in my second hour class that her son owns stock in Harley Davidson. And every once in a while he'll get a check for 3 or 4 cents. And that's his dividend check. So if you own a lot of shares of stock in a corporation, the corporation makes a lot of money, that dividend check could be pretty high. If you don't own much money, then your dividend check's probably pretty low. Stock exchange is where stocks can be purchased or sold. The bull market is when the stock market's going up, and I think of that because I think of a bull with horns pointed up. And a bear market is when the stock market's going down, and think of a bear hibernates under. Does a bear hibernate underground or just like in a cave? I don't know. Stock and shares, so you own shares of stock. If you own stock, you have part ownership of a corporation. And a share is how much of that ownership do you have. And then circular flow is simply how money and goods and services flow or go through the American economy. How money or goods and services flow or go through the American economy. All right, here we go. Unit 2, key questions. Question number 1. What is the most common form of business in the United States? The most common form of business in the United States is actually a sole proprietorship. But the type of business that makes the most money is a corporation. Question number 2. How is it determined what a company's profits will be? You take your expenses and your profits and you do some calculations, some subtractions there. And if your income and your income and your expenses, and you do some subtraction, that will let you know what your profits are. So you take your income and you minus your expenses, and that's your profit or your loss. Next, let's look at the circular flow and see if we can figure out where these items would go on the circular flow. So A says Best Buy delivers and sets up a new 62-inch flat screen TV. So we have to go to the product market there, and that would be a good and a service going to the household. B, McDonald's pays Megan for a week's work. She has a job, so that's the resource market. So we're going down to the resource market. And it's payment, so it's that money income payment going to Megan. Megan's a household. Letter C, Stephen gets a job working at Bricks Ice Cream for the summer. He's getting a job, so he's going to the resource market to get a job. And it says he gets a job, so that's his productive resources. He's bringing his productive resources there. Letter D, Nick treats the guys to pizza at Sam's after the final exam. This one's kind of a tricky one. Because he's saying he treats the guys, I'm taking that as he's spending money. So because of that, we're going to put it in the money payment line in the product market. The product market, the money payment line, because he's paying for that pizza at Sam's Pizza. I like Sam's Pizza. Sam's Pizza is great. Key question number 3. What is the role of the board of directors in a corporation? Who elects the board of directors? The board of directors deals with the day-to-day operations of a corporation. They manage the day-to-day operations. And the board of directors is elected by the shareholders or the stockholders of a corporation. Number 4, why is it good for America's economy if people buy stock? Because if they're purchasing stock, that tells us that the business is probably doing well, because people are optimistic about it. If the business is making profits, people want that stock because they want the dividends and they know it's going to go up in value. Now, initially, when a business issues its stock, the initial public offering, that money goes to an investment bank, and then that goes to the corporation, of course. Number 5, what are 2 ways investors hope to make money from their stock purchases? The first way is by buying low and selling high, right? So you buy your stock when it's not very valuable, and you sell it when it goes, it goes up more. So if you buy a share of Nike stock when it was $5 a share, and then today it's $50 a share, and you sold it, you would make $45 a share. It's pretty good. The second way to make money is through the dividends of the stock. Remember, the dividends are the stock, the profits of a corporation divided out among the shareholders. Number 6, list 2 stock exchanges in the United States. First, we have the New York Stock Exchange. Second, we have the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. There's also a Chicago Stock Exchange. Number 7, what is the Dow? The Dow tells us in general how the stock market is doing. So it's a general look at how the stock market is doing. That's the Dow. Number 8, explain what insider trading means. Why is it considered illegal? Insider trading is when someone buys or sells stock based on a tip that someone gives them that the rest of the nation does not have. So insider information is when you're made aware of something that's going on in a corporation that's going to impact the stock value. Other people don't know about it, but you benefit from it. I'll give you an example. Martha Stewart got in trouble for this. And I don't remember the specifics, but she either purchased or sold stock because of insider information. She was actually found guilty and had to spend time in prison for this. So the Securities and Exchange Commission is an organization that kind of regulates the stock market and sees if this is legal or not. All right, so there's the review for this test. At least for the Unit 1 and Unit 2, Mr. Grosskloss is going to bring home Unit 3 on supply and demand. We're going to end the review cast with a little song, Clouds, by Zach Sobiak. And if you've been following the news at all, he was a young man from Stillwater, Minnesota, who passed away this last week of cancer. And his song, Clouds, actually became the top song on iTunes last week, Wednesday. So here we go. Or maybe it was Thursday. Here we go. Let's end with Clouds. Have a good day. This is Mr. Bergstrom, and we will see you in room 204.